real quick, as we start, can we just go ahead and give it up for one of our interns, the guy who was up here during Crew Wars, Mr. Nick Barlow. Can we give it up for him real quick? Yeah. So the reason I'm giving it up for him is because we got to take a moment just to joke on him for a second. So, man, in middle school, he had a little bit of a jealousy problem. Because a lot of you guys know, jealousy is a very real thing that you deal with, especially when there's a member of an opposite sex involved. And so one of the funny stories I've heard about Nick is back when he was in 7th grade, there was this girl that, let's just say, she caught his eye. But the problem was that there was also one of his other best friends who also liked this girl as well. His name was TJ. And Nick and TJ, they were best friends. But unfortunately, to make matters worse, they both liked the same girl. But unfortunately for Nick, the girl was kind of more into TJ than she was into Nick. But if you know Nick, he is a competitor. So one day he goes into the gym in 7th grade, and unbeknownst to him, there was a crowd full of people watching what was about to transpire. But he saw the girl of his dreams in the bleachers, and so he thought, what better opportunity to get with this girl than to actually have TJ and him go in a 1v1 basketball match. So that's what they do. So you can imagine. Everybody goes quiet. And so what happens is he begins to drive down the lane, and in a matter of moments, he goes up for a layup, and then he trips over his shoelace, falls, twists his ankle, breaks his arm, and of course, TJ gets the girl, and Nick is left with simply a broken arm. See, the point of this story is that in your life, jealousy will make you look stupid, and jealousy will make you do some stupid things. See, for us, you need to understand that in your life, jealousy, it will make you do some stupid things, but also at the same time, it'll make you look stupid. And what I know to be true, especially in my life, is that when you're dealing with jealousy, what typically happens is it completely changes the view of the person that you're jealous of. Because what can happen is that this person can be the nicest, best individual on the planet Earth, but there's just something about them that you don't get. Like, you don't know what it is. Like, this person can be the most genuine person on the planet. They've never done nothing to you, but there's just something about them that you can't stand, and it's because there's jealousy. And you guys understand, I'm not going to advocate for hating people or despising people, but we understand when people do us wrong, obviously it's not going to sit well with us, and we're going to feel some type of way about the individual. Like if there's somebody in your class and they're gossiping about you, they're talking about your mom, your significant other, or something's going on behind your back that they're doing to you, obviously you're going to feel some type of way. Like, that makes sense. But what's crazy is that when it comes to jealousy, they could have never done anything to you at all. You guys could have had no interaction whatsoever, but there's just something about them that you can't stand. Every time you hear their name, every time you see them, there's something about them. And for most of us, it's because there's some sort of jealousy there. And for some of us, it looks, it could be a million different things. Maybe for you, it's the car that they get to drive. It's the house that they live in. It's the grades that they have. It's the fact that, man, every teacher loves them, even though they're not the best student, but you're actually a great student and nobody notices you. Or maybe you're a little jealous of them because the problem's a little bit deeper. For them, it seems like they have a perfect home life, and you're actually afraid to go home because there is no home life. For them out there, every single time they have a sporting event, a choir concert, or a track meet, their parents show up, but you don't even have parents to show up. For them, they have their whole entire life figured out, and you don't even know what you're doing after high school. And see, whether big or small, you need to understand, and the sad truth, and the reason we're talking about this is because jealousy, it doesn't just affect your view of them, it affects the view of yourself. And the problem with jealousy, regardless if it's justified or not, is it doesn't just change your view of that person, it drastically diminishes the value that you have when you see yourself in the mirror. And I know, obviously, we're not going to openly admit that we are jealous. Like, I know that we're not going to do that. I know that for some of us, we're dealing with issues, and we might not even know that jealousy is the root issue. But here's what we know to be true, and this is why this is so important. Because at the root of jealousy, it's us seeing other people living the life that we wish we could live, doing the things we wish we could do, driving the cars, we wish we could drive, and being given the opportunities that we wish we could be given. And the problem with that is the moment that you begin to look at somebody else, man, you put them on a pedestal and you begin to elevate them above your life and you despise them for it. But in the same breath, you begin to diminish the value of your life. And the problem with jealousy is not so much as it is with you view somebody else differently. It's you don't view yourself the way that you should. We'll talk more about this in a second, but like last week, we talked about how God's given you guys a unique plan and purpose for your life. But the quickest way to block yourself from ever walking in that is becoming jealous of the people who are actually walking in it themselves. And the sad thing for us, and the reason this should matter to you, is because you guys have a plan and purpose for your life. The Bible says that you are a masterpiece. There are things in this world that nobody else can do but you. There is literally a life, the Bible says, that God's marked out for you to live. Nobody else but you. But the reason that jealousy is such an issue is not just because it's the wrong thing to do. It's because it blocks you from being the you God's created you to be. And if you've ever dealt with jealousy, you need to understand, first and foremost, you're not alone. Adults deal with this. I deal with this all the time. This is an issue that human beings have been dealing with forever. And that also means it's really cool because we can read about all kinds of people in the Bible who dealt with this thing and hopefully glean some kind of wisdom as to what we need to do about it. For those of you who don't know, there was a guy in the Old Testament. His name was Saul. And Saul, he was the very first king of God's people, the Israelites. And you know, in the Bible, there was a whole lot of adjectives to describe Saul. He was a good and generous king, the Bible says. The Bible literally says that he was a very stand-up dude, and he was the best-looking dude, basically, in all of the land. Man, Saul, he was the guy, and everybody knew it. He was the king. He was the guy. You would think that somebody who looked like that, had that many followers, and dressed like that, with that car, at that house, with that many times he goes on vacation, that guy hasn't made. Until one day, he didn't. See, one day, Saul had a battle with a people group called the Philistines. And finally, Saul was put in a position to battle somebody that he could not win by himself. And look at what happens. And this is in 1 Samuel 17, 1 through 3, and it'll be on the screen. It says, "Now the Philistines gathered their forces for war and assembled at Soko in Judah. The Philistines occupied one hill and the Israelites another with a valley between them." And so right now you have the perfect setup for a good old-fashioned battle. You got God's people, the Israelites, and you got the enemy, you got the Philistines. And so you can imagine, maybe the Israelites are going to win, but the one thing they did not know at the time was that the Philistines, they had a secret weapon. And if, you've read the Bible and heard this story before, they had a giant in their midst. And this is what it says. It says, "Then Goliath, a Philistine champion from Gath, came out of the Philistine ranks to face the forces of Israel." Check this. He was over 9 feet tall. He wore a helmet. He wore a bronze helmet, and his bronze coat of armor weighed 125 pounds. Fam, there are some of you little runts that don't even weigh 125 pounds. Dog, he was wearing you for armor, bro. This cat was huge. And the problem with this is everybody knew how big this guy was. Like the entire world at the time, nobody could defeat the Philistines because of this one guy. And so Saul, who was the guy for a minute, is now met with somebody that he can't defeat. And so, of course, he's freaking out and they end up hiding. And then one day, if you read the rest of the story, a little runt of a dude, a little 6th grade guy, his voice is cracking. He's just hitting puberty. His name is David. He comes out. He's like, "Do you not know the God that we serve? Why are you scared of that little dude? I can get him." I was like, "Bro, you feeling yourself today, bro? You like 4 feet tall. This dude is literally double your size, fam." And he says, "No, you don't know the God I serve." And so he begins to declare that he is going to take this beast of a man down on his own. And when Saul the king hears this is what he says. David says to him, he says, "Don't worry about that Philistine." David said to Saul, "I'll go fight him." And Saul said, "Don't be ridiculous. There is no way you can fight this Philistine and possibly win. You're only a little boy. And he's been a man of war since his youth." Basically, Saul's saying, look, ain't nobody ever been to defeat him. And common sense says that's not going to work. It is not going to work. But through persistence, David was finally able to convince Saul. And check out what happened with David. In 1 Samuel 17, 48 through 50, it says, "As Goliath moved closer to attack, David quickly ran out to meet him. Reaching into a shepherd's bag and taking out a stone, he hurled it with his sling and hit the Philistine in the forehead. The stone sank in, and Goliath stumbled and fell face down on the ground. So David triumphed over the Philistine with only a sling and a stone because he had no sword, because the sword was literally too heavy for this dude, is what the Bible says. But think about this for a second. You can imagine, try to go back in time for a minute. Here's a guy who is 9 feet tall, wearing armor that weighs more than most of you guys. And in one sling of a stone, this little runt of a guy kills him. The battle's over. The battle's won. The Israelites win because of David. So you can imagine this dude gets famous really quick. It's like that dude on TikTok who posts one video and he goes viral. Fam, you know how many times I've been reposting this video and I can't go viral? One sling of a stone and the whole entire nation knows this dude's name. And this is funny. They literally began to make songs about this guy and they would compare him with Saul. And they said this. They said, as they danced, they sang, Saul has killed his thousands, but David his tens of thousands. Huh? So literally, all of Saul's kingdom, remember, Saul's the guy. He's always been the guy. He's the people that everybody wishes they could be because nobody looks better than him. Nobody talks better than him. Nobody is like Saul. And finally, Saul has met his match because people don't like him anymore because they like somebody else better. You see, this is the moment for Saul where he used to be the guy that jealousy begins to set in for him. And what's crazy, though, is David was the one who actually helped Saul's army win. Like you would think, common sense would say that Saul would be excited and he would celebrate the fact that David just helped them win, but he was actually threatened by David. And so if you read the rest of the story, you'll realize that Saul and David's relationship was completely torn because for the rest of Saul's life, he wasn't worried about being a king anymore. He was worried about and insecure about, and he made it his life mission to make sure that David would never be king because he was jealous. If you read the rest of the story, that story ended up in King Saul completely leaving his role because he was so scared of David. And see, what's crazy is that Saul, he was the guy who actually promoted David. Like Saul was the guy who actually saw in David what nobody else did, and he said, okay, go fight him. He was the guy who promoted him to the place where he can actually kill the giant, and now he's the guy who kills him. And see, this is what I see all the time, is best friends start out best friends, and they hate each other because they get too close, and they begin to see in the other person what they don't see in themselves, and they split because they're scared, because they're insecure, because they can't celebrate what's good in them because they're insecure about what's not in them. And typically, jealousy is not with some dude you don't know. It's the person who literally you shared your life with. You know, we went in a ministry school for 3 years, and that's why, you know, we're here at Peace On. You want to talk about insecurity and jealousy? Try spending 3 years of your life who are literally trying to do the same thing you're doing, and you're constantly met with all of your weaknesses and all their strengths. See, jealousy, it doesn't happen with some Joe Schmo down the road that you don't know. Forget them. It happens with the person, the girl, the guy that you share everything with. Because the closer you get, the more you begin to see the uniqueness and the masterpiece-ness that God's given them, and you're afraid because you're so focused on what they have that you neglect what God's given you. This is exactly what happened with Saul. He gave up everything he had because he was jealous. So what happened? I think what this verse says is perfect. Proverbs 14:30, it says this. It says, a heart at peace gives life to the body, but envy rots the bones. And envy is just jealousy. So a heart at peace, when you're at peace with people, you can live the best possible life because you're not worried about them. But when envy and jealousy begins in your life, the reason we're talking about this, not because it's the right or wrong thing to do, it's because it will rot you. It will ruin any potential relationship you have. It'll ruin your potential because you'll be so fixated on trying to get what they have that you forget you have something better because it's unique to you. And so the reason that this is so important, the reason you need to get this is not because, oh, you shouldn't be jealous. Well, you shouldn't. Well, because your purpose is at stake. Because Saul, he gave up everything God gave him because he wanted what God gave to David. How many times do we do that? We look at people on social media. We look at our best friends and we distance ourselves so we can feel better about ourselves. And that's what gossip is. We all gossip. Look, I get it. You know, we all do. I do the same thing. We talk about other people. You know what gossip is? It's becoming so insecure in yourself that you feel like it's better to demean them so you can find meaning in your life. Guys, the meaning in your life has already been dictated. You are a unique image bearer of God. And if you could focus on your life instead of theirs for 2 seconds, you'll become so in love with the purpose God's given you that you will celebrate them because you guys are in this together. But when jealousy comes in the picture, it rots your bones. So what do? It's very easy for me to come up here and say, stop being jealous. But that doesn't work. I'm learning this with my wife right now. I cannot just tell you to not feel an emotion you feel. Literally, my wife is beautiful, but because she's pregnant, she thinks she doesn't look a certain type of way. And so every single day she'll come look in the mirror and I can see her face get downcast. And I get so frustrated because I'm like, stop. Like, don't you see what I see? And she said, it was like 2 nights ago, you can't tell me what to feel. It's like, yeah, I can. Wait, no, because I don't want you to do that to me. Sorry. But But like, I can't just tell you not to be jealous. That's not going to fix anything. But there is something you can do. There is something that with all the brain research and all the science actually backs up something that you can do that will diminish the effect of jealousy and actually help you accomplish the thing that you've always been insecure about, and you'll begin to see the beauty in it. You know what you do? I want you guys to pay attention because this is real, and it sounds very counterintuitive, and it sounds stupid, but if you get this, it will change your relationships with people. You know how you get rid of jealousy? You celebrate the people that you're jealous of. You know how you get rid of the bitterness you feel towards somebody? Find the gold in their life and call it out. Because you know what happens? When you begin to see the best in other people, you will begin to see the best in yourself. Because it's a spirit issue. So when you have a critical spirit, you can only be critical of yourself. But when you have a celebratory spirit, when you begin to see the good in everybody, you better believe you will see the best in yourself because God's given you eyes to see what's in you. Not what's in them. Let them worry about them. But once you begin to celebrate other people, it changes the game for how you see yourself and the trajectory of your life. You know, for those of you who have ever been on a cruise, you will say that, you know, cruises are a lot of fun. Me and my wife, we went on a honeymoon on a cruise, and we chose that because we thought it'd be fun. And, you know, it was fun. We got to eat a lot of food. It was a lot of fun. But it wasn't fun at the same time because on our honeymoon, you think, you know, we'd have a great time. It'd be a good time to get away, all this jazz. What actually happened was we were motion sick the whole time. If you've ever been on a cruise, you know it ain't just smooth sailing, fam. It is wishy-washy the whole time. You got turbulence, yeah, in the sky, but you also got it on a boat. And so the whole entire time, we're like sick to death. We can't even go out to dinner because we're so sick. And you think about that. If I was to come and tell my wife, stop being sick, go to dinner with me. You know how stupid I look? So me telling you to stop being jealous is not going to fix anything. But you know what fixes motion sickness? I think we got the picture right now, Julie. These things right here. Can you put that picture on the screen? It's those little wristbands. So what these things are, these things change the game. What's funny is me telling you to stop being nauseous. Don't throw up. Don't stop it. Put it back. Like, that's not going to help nothing. But you know what it does is these things. So what these things are is these are travel motion sickness wristbands. And what's funny is that there's absolutely no medicine in these things at all. But what happens is you buy these things, you put them on your wrist, and whenever you feel nauseous, you stop for a second and you press that little button on the wrist, and what happens is that little button puts the perfect amount of pressure in the right place, and it gets your brain psychologically to stop focusing on the nausea and to focus on the pressure in another area. And the key to getting rid of nausea is a redirection. It's not to stop being nauseous. It's to put pressure and focus on another thing. It's the same with us. So me telling you to stop being jealous is not going to fix anything. But if you actually want to live a greater life than you could possibly imagine, a better life tomorrow than what your parents lived, if you want to be the first one to graduate high school, if you want to be the first one to get a college diploma, if you want to be successful, you want to be an entrepreneur, you want to be a philanthropist and make so much money that you get to give money away to help people and it gives you joy, if you want to live a better life, it's not by being jealous of the people around you. It's by celebrating them, because then you'll begin to celebrate yourself. You guys need to know that your entire career for the rest of your life, you're going to have people around you who are better than you, better looking than you, better smelling than you, better all around than you. So how do you survive with that? You celebrate the good in them, and you watch as you begin to see the good in yourself reveal. So what do? Number one, you need to celebrate yourself first. I have to say this because we live in a generation that is more anxiety-driven, depression-driven, and so introspective that we can't see the good in our life enough. Trust me, I deal with insecurity all the time. I don't look good enough. I'm not buff enough. I don't look good enough. All this crap. But when you begin to celebrate the good in yourself, you'll then be given the opportunity and the eyes to see the good in other people, and it just repeats. So I don't know what it is for you, and this is not arrogance. This is not narcissism. This is you being confident in the person God's created you to be. So pick one thing about yourself that you love. That one weird quirk that everybody thinks is stupid. Celebrate it because it's your uniqueness. Find that one thing about you that you love and celebrate it, and then celebrate others. So it's not just enough to celebrate yourself, man. You need to celebrate other people. And I'm telling you, when you begin to open up your eyes beyond just your little circle of comfortability because you've distanced everybody else who threatens your purpose, once you begin to celebrate the good in everybody, you'll be amazed at the success that you have. You'll be amazed at the mental peace that you will have because you're not worried about anything anymore. Because who cares? God's given your life to you, and he will allow you to be given every opportunity you need. But he's not going to give you the doors open like he's going to give that person, because it's theirs. And so I challenge you guys, man, whatever you got to do to get this, do it. Because I'm telling you, this is countercultural from the school that you're at, from the family that you're in. This is not what we do. We criticize other people to make ourselves look good. We sit in a corner and we post on social media behind our perfectly pictured profile picture, but it's masked in insecurity and jealousy. It's time to stand up. It's time to do something about the life you've been given. And it starts when you celebrate the good in them. Once you do that, you will be amazed how much better your life is, because you can finally see the good in you, the good that's been there all along. I want to pray for you guys, and then we'll get out. God, I thank you so much just for every single student in this room, and I pray that tonight, God, you would help us to see the good in other people. That, God, jealousy would die right now, and I pray that you would begin to enable every single one of us to begin to celebrate the good in others, so that we can then see the good in ourselves.
Terrible. I forgot what I was supposed to say. Hope you liked the video, change your faith, and now you want to be like me because I'm cool. Like, comment, subscribe, where that's at, and we'll see you next week.
Okay, that sucked. Next.
That was fire!